Hey guys! Today I am going to discuss about adrenergic nervous system. It is a very important topic. Before watching this video, I will recommend you to watch first and second video in order to clear your basics. Let's begin. In today's session, I will be giving a brief introduction about adrenergic nervous system. Then we will discuss the most important topic, that is adrenergic receptors, and finally the mechanism of action on stimulation of adrenergic receptors. Sympathetic nervous system is also known as adrenergic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is also known as adrenergic nervous system. The primary function of adrenergic nervous system is to prepare the body for flight or fight response and help the human body to adjust to the stress. The primary function of sympathetic nervous system is to prepare the body for flight or fight response and to help the human body to adjust to stress. When you are standing alone on road and group of gangsters are approaching towards you with gun, then what will be your response? You will try to run away, right? Because you are unarmed. This response is prepared by adrenergic nervous system. Now you have a machine gun and group of gangsters are approaching towards you. Then you will fight with them, right? This response is also prepared by adrenergic nervous system. It prepares the body for flight or fight response and it will help the human body to adjust to stress. This is the function of sympathetic nervous system or adrenergic nervous system. Neurotransmitters of adrenergic nervous system are noradrenaline and dopamine. These are the neurotransmitters of adrenergic nervous system. The catecholamines produced in body are noradrenaline, adrenaline and dopamine. Adrenaline is an adrenergic agonist. Agonist means any substance that binds to receptor and produces a response. Adrenaline is an adrenergic agonist. I have given a brief introduction about adrenergic nervous system. Now we will begin with next topic, that is adrenergic receptors. Adrenergic receptors is the most important topic. So listen carefully and make notes while watching this video. After watching the video, revise this topic as many times as possible because knowing the location of receptor and effect produced on stimulation is very important. If you know the location of receptor, then you can understand the remaining part of chapter very easily. So listen carefully. Let's begin with classification of adrenergic receptors. Alquist classified adrenergic receptors into alpha receptors and beta receptors. Alquist classified adrenergic receptors into alpha receptors and beta receptors. Alpha receptors are further classified into alpha 1 receptor, alpha 2 receptors, while beta receptors are further classified into beta 1 receptors, beta 2 receptors and beta 3 receptors. This is the classification of adrenergic receptors. Stimulation of alpha receptors results in excitatory effects. The only exception is gastrointestinal tract. Stimulation of alpha receptors results in excitatory effect. The only exception is gastrointestinal tract, while stimulation of beta receptors results in inhibitory effects. The only exception is heart. The stimulation of beta receptors results in inhibitory effects. The only exception is heart. Now I will be discussing about the location of the adrenergic receptors and the effects produced on stimulation. First we will start with alpha 1 receptors. Alpha 1 receptors are located in vascular smooth muscles of gut, genitourinary smooth muscles, and alpha 1 receptors are also present in liver. Alpha 1 receptors are present in vascular smooth muscles of gut, genitourinary smooth muscles, and liver. When alpha 1 receptors are stimulated, vascular smooth muscles will contract and genitourinary smooth muscles will also contract, while smooth muscles of gut will relax. And in liver, glycogenolysis occurs. When alpha 1 receptors are stimulated, vascular smooth muscles will contract and genitourinary smooth muscles will also contract, while smooth muscles of gut will relax, and in liver, glycogenolysis will occur. Glycogenolysis means breakdown of glycogen into glucose and glucose 1-phosphate. Glycogenolysis means breakdown of glycogen into glucose and glucose 1-phosphate. This is the meaning of glycogenolysis. Now we will start with alpha 2 receptors. Alpha 2 receptors are located in pancreatic beta cells and platelets. Alpha 2 receptors are located in pancreatic beta cells and platelets. When alpha 2 receptors are stimulated, there will be decrease in insulin release from pancreatic beta cells and there will be platelet aggregation. When alpha 2 receptors are stimulated, there will be decrease in insulin release and there will be platelet aggregation. Now I will discuss about beta 1 receptors. Beta 1 receptors are located in heart. When beta 1 receptors are stimulated, there will be increase in heart rate, increase in force of contraction, increase in cardiac output, and increase in atrioventricular conduction velocity. There will be increase when beta 1 receptors are stimulated, there will be increase in heart rate, increase in force of contraction, increase in cardiac output, and increase in atrioventricular conduction velocity. Now I will discuss about beta 2 receptors. Beta 2 receptors are located in smooth muscles of gut, bronchi, genitourinary, and vascular. Beta 2 receptors are located in smooth muscles of gut, bronchi, genitourinary, and vascular. When beta 2 receptors are stimulated, there will be relaxation of all these smooth muscles. When beta 2 receptors are stimulated, there will be relaxation of all these smooth muscles. We have come to the final receptor, that is beta 3 receptors. Beta 3 receptors are located in adipose tissue and bladder. Beta 3 receptors are located in adipose tissue and bladder. When beta 3 receptors are stimulated, there will be lipolysis in adipose tissue and there will be relaxation of detrusor muscle in bladder. When beta 3 receptors are stimulated, there will be lipolysis in adipose tissue and relaxation of detrusor muscle in bladder. Lipolysis means breakdown of triacylglycerol into glycerol and free fatty acids. Lipolysis means breakdown of triacylglycerol into glycerol and free fatty acids. Now we will discuss the mechanism of action on stimulation of adrenergic receptors. Both alpha and beta receptors are G protein coupled receptors. Both alpha and beta receptors are G protein coupled receptors. First we will discuss the mechanism of action on stimulation of alpha receptors. Then we will discuss about beta receptors. I will be drawing a rough diagram to explain the mechanism of action. This is a cell. I will be magnifying cell membrane. This is the cell membrane. And outside the cell extracellular fluid is present, and within the cell intracellular fluid is present. Alpha receptors are located on the outer surface of cell membrane. When noradrenaline or adrenaline or any of the adrenergic drugs come and bind to alpha receptors, then alpha receptors will get activated and they will convert inactive G protein to active G protein. I will be writing short form for protein. Instead of protein, I will write it as P. When noradrenaline or adrenaline or any of the adrenergic drugs come and bind to alpha receptors located on the outer surface of cell membrane, alpha receptors will get activated and they will convert inactive G protein to active G protein. When G protein is activated, it will convert inactive phospholipase C to active phospholipase. When G protein gets activated, it converts inactive phospholipase to active phospholipase. The phospholipase causes release of diacylglycerol and inositol triphosphate 3 from the cell membrane. Phospholipase causes release of diacylglycerol and inositol triphosphate from cell membrane. Inositol triphosphate causes mobilization of calcium from endoplasmic reticulum. Inositol triphosphate causes mobilization of calcium ions from endoplasmic reticulum. Diacylglycerol and calcium ions together activate protein kinase C. Diacylglycerol and calcium ions together activate protein kinase C, which phosphorylates proteins and produces specific response. Protein kinase C phosphorylates proteins and produces specific response. This is the mechanism of action on stimulation of alpha receptor. I will quickly revise this. Beta receptor is also a G protein coupled receptor. Again, I will be drawing a rough diagram to explain the mechanism of action on stimulation of beta receptors. This is the cell. Again, I am magnifying cell membrane. This is the interior of cell where intracellular fluid is present, and outside the cell extracellular fluid is present. Beta receptor is located on the outer surface of the cell membrane. When neurotransmitter of adrenergic nervous system like noradrenaline or any adrenergic drug or dopamine, when it comes and not dopamine, adrenaline, when it comes and binds to beta receptor, then beta receptor will get activated, and this beta receptor acts on the G protein present in cell membrane and converts it into active form. When beta receptor gets activated, it converts inactive G protein into active form. The active G protein activates adenyl cyclase in cell membrane. The active G protein activates adenyl cyclase in cell membrane. The adenyl cyclase slightly diffuses into the cytoplasm of the cell and will convert ATP into cyclic AMP. The adenyl cyclase slightly diffuses into cytoplasm and converts ATP into cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP phosphorylates proteins by activating protein kinase C. Cyclic AMP phosphorylates proteins by activating protein kinase A. Not protein kinase C, protein kinase A. When cyclic AMP phosphorylates proteins by activating protein kinase A, there will be specific response produced. We are done with today's session. In next session, I will be discussing about adrenergic drugs. Revise today's topics properly. Thank you guys for listening with patience.